So last week, The Irishman, the latest film from Martin Scorsese, dropped on Netflix. With the holidays and my birthday, it took me a few days to find a block of time where I could watch the entire thing, but I finally completed the Irishman challenge, so let's talk about it. The Irishman tells the epic story of Frank Sheeran's time as a mafia hitman spanning multiple decades. So prior to this film's release, there's been a lot of talk about what is true cinema, the MCU, all sparked by comments from Martin Scorsese. But now we have the movie itself and we can evaluate it on its own terms. So before I give you my thoughts on it, go ahead and tell me, what did you think down below in the comment section? Did you love it? Is it one of the best of the year? Is this true cinema? Were you a little bit disappointed? Was it too long? All of that fun stuff. Let me know your take. Also, let me know if you happen to have been able to see it in the theater. It only got a limited theatrical release. For a Scorsese film, this is the kind of film you really do kind of want to see in the theater. Let me know if you were able to do that down below in the comment section. With that said, let's get started talking about the good. And the first thing you have to talk about with this movie is, of course, the fantastic performances from our three leads. You've got three Hollywood icons essentially returning to the genre that puts them on the map as Hollywood icons. In the case of Joe Pesci, he's essentially been retired for something like 20 years and has been telling people no for decades, and finally, this is the movie that he decided to return for Martin Scorsese for this specific project, and he absolutely brings his A game, and you kind of reminds you how good he really is. Like in my household, I've got three kids under the age of 10, and so we watch Home Alone all the time, and then I watch the Lethal Weapon movies all the time. That's what I see a lot more of than some of his more gangster kind of actual award-winning stuff, and kind of just reminds you how excellent of an actor he really is in the big stuff, in the subtle moments. He can do it all, but he's been out of the spotlight for a very long time. The other two kind of leads here with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, these are guys that, of course, we know their A game is the best there is, but for whatever reason, a lot of the roles that they've gotten over the last 20 years have been a little bit questionable. Sometimes they've done comedic stuff that you just seems a little bit embarrassing. Why are they doing some of this stuff? And you wonder, like, did they lose it a little bit? Have they kind of lost their... No, they just didn't happen to get the right roles. As soon as they're working with Scorsese again, I mean, they are just kind of fantastic in convincing you that they are like turning into these people. It's very like with, you know, Al Pacino showing up in Adam Sandler comedies and stuff like that. Kind of forget. And some of the other stuff he's even kind of done over the last 20 years, it just seems like he's doing his Pacino-isms, whereas here it gets back into acting and transforming into, you know, Jimmy Hoffa in this film. And you buy him as the charismatic leader guy that's rallying all these people that behind the scenes really believes he's doing the right thing, even though he's very much doing evil things. And through some of the stuff that he's doing, the pride, all of it. Of course, also Robert De Niro as well here. Similar types of situation of some of the stuff he's done recently, like, kind of questionable. And then you see him here as this guy that left World War II with a little bit of an emptiness in his soul that allows him to do just kind of awful things and just kind of shrug it off and keep on going. And as you go throughout the movie and you just kind of see the sadness of his existence as it continues forward, and he just plays that while never kind of surrendering the coldness of him, never surrendering the pride, but you just seeing the toll that it takes upon him. Also, it's a movie that's a return to kind of these classic prestige underground crime mafia type films that, you know, over the decades there's been many of these that have been created, but over the last decade it's a genre that's, you know, kind of gone away a little bit. And so you have this legendary director returning to one of his genres that we haven't seen much of lately, and doing a classic version of one of these massive stories of underground crime, spanning large amounts of time with huge casts, complex plots, true drama layered on top of each other. It's just neat to see that again. It's also a movie that, for its very long runtime, which we will talk about that later in this, It's actually a very quickly paced movie. It's not long because the scenes just drag out and there's these extended amounts of dialogue and monologues and opening shots. It's not like that. It actually jumps around at a very brisk pace between different plot lines, different time periods, different characters. There's a lot of different pieces and it touches on them in a way that you're constantly feel the forward motion and movement inside of it. And so it's long in a very strange kind of way because it's just not like most movies like this, which was a very pleasant surprise as I was a little bit scared of the runtime going into it. It's also a film that gets very emotional as you move into the third act. The first two acts set up these characters, their relationships, the dynamics between all of them, and then you start moving into the final hour and some real tragedy, hard choices. You start to see the toll that it's taking on them, and you see their full lives play out and where the choices that they've made lead them at the end of their lives, and it really packs an emotional punch as you see all of this play out. The way that it's handled, really nicely done inside of that third act. With that said, let's move on to the mixed aspects of the film. The big thing here is with a movie of this scope and size with so many plot lines and characters and seeing these characters at different points in time in their life and it's kind of jumping around a little bit, certain things weren't entirely clear. As we were watching it, my wife said, there's a whole lot being implied here that's not clearly stated. And to some extent, that's a good thing. You don't want the director to treat you like you're an idiot and over-explain everything, but because it's so big, because there's so much going on, at times we were having conversations while watching the movie to make sure we weren't confusing which character was which, and Anna Paquin shows up at one point in time like, oh, is that his daughter? That's his daughter, right? Which one is it? And trying to piece together who is what, because there's just so much to take in process, and it implies a lot, it doesn't spell it out, and that can make things confusing at times. I think it could have done a little bit more to give a couple more details to make it clear exactly when things were happening, how specific things tied together. But at the same time, I appreciated that he didn't think I was an idiot. Now, maybe I am a little bit of an idiot, and that's why I need things spelled out a little bit more. But it was right on that line of, did I need a little bit more, or was it good that it made me think a little bit and pay attention? I'm not entirely sure. From there, let's move on to the bad. And the big thing here is a little bit what I kind of implied a little bit earlier, but I found the payoff of the third act to be a lot more engrossing than the setup of the first two acts. Now, there was a lot of things inside of the first two acts that were great, and scenes that I loved, and the general vibe of it I think worked, but there's just so much there and so much to take in that I think it kind of kept me at arm's length distance at times, because I'm just trying to sort through all the information, all the characters. Our lead, the Robert De Niro character, is intentionally kind of cold-hearted, and so you don't initially have a big emotional connection to him because he is this hitman that's just okay with what he's doing. And because of all of that, it made the third act really stand out and connect with me and resonate with me a lot more than what came beforehand. Like, by comparison, during that third act, I felt the dread of where things were headed. I was scared of certain things, the choices that might be made at certain points in time, and felt the loneliness of these characters. And I didn't feel that in the first two acts. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel at certain points in time. I was just kind of interested in the narrative, and then other times I was like, okay, what am I even supposed to be paying attention to here? And so that third act, when it focused a lot more and we understood the relationships, that's when the movie really found its stride for me. And I'd say there's been a lot of discussion on Twitter as to people posting like, hey, if you want to watch it in 4 chunks, here's how you should break it down into 4 episodes, and people thrashing them like, this is meant to be watched in one sitting. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I think that there's a lot of merit to the idea of watching this as 4 different episodes. Like, if they actually intentionally cut it that way and retweak the pieces just a little bit to make 4 50-minute episodes out of this that were clearly focused in each piece, I think that would have worked really well. I also think the movie, if you trimmed it down to about 2 hours, 45 minutes, I think it would have had a lot more clarity inside of it and had a lot more punch from beginning to end. As is, I think it was just a little bit too big, at least for a film that you're watching at home. That's a different experience. Like if I was in the theater, I think I would have experienced this film very differently than watching it home with all the distractions, the things that happen, dogs walking in, kids waking up, the things that happen when you're in your home versus the escapism of a theater changes the experience. And this as a one sit down movie for 3.5 hours, it was a bit rough for me, even though there's so many great things inside it. Real quick, before I give you my final thoughts on this one, be sure to share your thoughts down below in the comment section. I know a lot of people are loving this movie. They think it's a masterpiece. And so I imagine we're gonna have a bit of a lively discussion between the two crowds, the people that thought it was fantastic and the people that thought it was a little bit too long and dragged out. Just be respectful. Let's share our opinions. The Irishman is a very good film with fantastic performances, but that I did think was a little bit too long, even though it did move at a nice brisk pace. It's an A- overall. It's a 7.5 on the entertainment scale, and I guess I'd say it's a must-watch for cinema fans. Be sure to tell me what you thought down below in the comment section. If you want more videos like this, check out that video right over there. I don't even know what it is. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.